Hello and welcome back to Curtin Call, an inside look into the world of coaching. Our guest today is a man who has spent countless hours coaching up numerous Bulldogs in all of the major sports here at Riverside Brookfield High School. Today's guest is Coach Larry Rocco. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, Brendan.
Who was a mentor? Was there someone along the way that kind of opened your eyes to?
Well, I kind of got thrust into it a little bit. I played football at Morton College for 2 years, and at the end of first semester of my sophomore year, I was getting recruited as a college quarterback. And UW-Milwaukee called me, went up there to visit, liked the campus, liked the school. They offered me a scholarship. I played baseball at the time, and I still wanted to play baseball. Okay. And my father took a look at the scholarship offer, and he goes, costs you more to live at home than it would be to go up there. And we didn't have a lot of money, Brendan. Sure. So he said, you want to go to college? You better take it. So I took it, went up there. In Morton College, I was a business major. Got up there, all the business classes were full, and ended up in physical education. And that's when I got into coaching. You took the theory classes and things and really got into them. Absolutely. And made the right choice.
Sure. Well, obviously, Coach, having played for you, I know the type of coach you are. You hate to use the term players coach, but you did a great job at connecting with your athletes. With that being said, Coach, I know that you've worked with defensive backs primarily when you were coaching me, and you've coached on both sides of the ball as well as special teams, but your tenure within the softball program was long and a successful one. Can you talk a little bit about how you became a softball coach and what the connection was there?
Yeah, we moved back, my wife and I, out of college. I worked at Warren High School. I was a head football coach there for 3 years. We came back here, and my wife became the assignment chairperson for the West Suburban for officials. Through that, I started talking to Bill Vandermerk on the phone a lot. And Bill had a football opening and a softball opening. When I came back, I was umpiring softball, and I did that for a year, and I enjoyed the game. So, talking to Bill, I said I'd like to apply for the softball job and a football job, and that was back in 1982, the fall of '82.
Sure.
And Bill, offered me both jobs. I accepted them.
Okay, great. And then shortly thereafter, you probably found yourself coaching 3 sports within a school year?
Easily. I was coaching football, I was coaching boys basketball, and I was coaching softball here at RB.
Right. I'm sure that was very healthy for your marriage, being away out of the house.
I was out a lot.
Yeah, no question. I always say, sometimes when you're that much involved in high school athletics, you provide this opportunity for your own kids, John and Tom, to see another side of athletics that they might not be privy to, or some kids, they might be getting coached up by their dad or their mom in Little League, but on the flip side, they're able to see, the game being played at a higher level. Tell me a little bit, what was that experience like, having your boys with you on the sideline and bringing them out to practice? Because obviously they both turned into solid athletes.
Yeah, John, wherever I was coaching basketball, John and Tommy, they'd come up, shoot buckets on the side or whatever. They both, I think, became real students of the game. They both understood the game, and they both have gone on to coach. Tom would. I'd watch film on the weekend for football and break down film all the time. And Tommy would sit next to me on the couch and watch it.
Sure.
And he was 4 or 5 years old. By the time he got to high school, he pretty well understood what was going on. Right. And his senior year, he ended up calling defense for those, for a real good football team that went to the quarterfinals of the state that year.
Right.
But, he learned it from watching me.
Right.
And Tommy liked football. He loved it.
Yeah.
John played football 1 year, and then he concentrated on basketball.
Gave it a shot. Yeah, had a great career in basketball, no doubt about it. Coach, there was a time when you were a head coach, 3 different seasons, 3 different schools. After your tenure at Riverside Brookfield football, you went on to become the head football coach at Westmont. You coached girls basketball here, and then you coached girls softball at Hinsdale South, correct?
Correct. I was the head sophomore football coach here, and the head job was open at Westmont. And I knew the athletic director, Mike McCord, over there, and I thought that'd be a great opportunity to be a head coach for the second time in my career. So I was there for 2 years. In the meantime, Coach Zeman and Mr. Balderman approached me about the girls' basketball. And I was a little reluctant to take it at first, but they talked me into it, and I took that, and I still was the head softball at Hinsdale South. But after the first year of girls basketball there, we had 3 Division I athletes here, that ended up getting recruited and go. Megan Hutchins, Maggie McCluskey, and Erin Pfeiffer. And it took up a lot of time talking to college coaches and getting stuff ready for them. So I gave up the Westmont football job at that time and concentrated on the basketball. And then after a year, that basketball still kept getting to be more
long
work.
Season.
So I stepped down at Hinsdale South as a softball coach and became the assistant for a year there.
Sure.
But then I was retiring from teaching, so all things fell into place, kind of.
Gotcha. Well, I know that we could go on and on and on about each sector of your coaching career, and we certainly do want to touch on more. And we also want to touch on your ability as a golfer and the ability to coach golf as well, as we're in the twilight of our career, so to speak. And I know you've done a wonderful job with that program. So when we return, we'll talk to Coach a little bit more about the golf program here at RB, as well as some of the athletes that he's worked with in the past. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Curtin Call. Hello and welcome back to Curtin Call. Our guest today is none other than Coach Larry Rocco. Coach, you've coached a long time here at Riverside Brookfield. You've coached some outstanding boys basketball teams and girls. You've coached some outstanding football teams as well as girls softball. It's not every day that you see a coach that's able to cross those boundaries and work with young women and young men and to be able to make that transition within a couple months. Coach, can you reflect on some of the challenges that were presented or some of your abilities that kind of ease that transition in working with both boys and girls?
The boys are a little more confident when they come. Boys got to see something happen before they believe you. Girls come in and girls are more coachable. They're going to come to you with their questions, and it's a different thing. The boys you can be a little tougher with. Girls individually, you can't criticize them. As a group, they're good with it. But that's probably the biggest difference. The boys, but our girls here, we're competitive. Our girls were tough here. I mean, our kids battled. We were playing bigger schools, and our girls were tough kids here, Brendan.
Well, I know that you were able to develop that strong rapport with a lot of the girls, and you still have those relationships, as all coaches do, with some of the players that we worked with. What do you think? What do you attribute that to? Them knowing that you care about them as people before they.
I think also that Riverside Brookfield High School is a high school of great families. And our kids have come from great mothers and fathers that have raised their kids to do the best that they can, be the best, and be respectful. And I think that just develops into those kids as they start becoming adults.
Absolutely.
I say, Tom McMahon, played football here back in 1985. I think he graduated. Tom McMahon probably calls me once a week still. And Coach, you want to go out and watch a game or something like that? Stuff like that, it makes you feel good as a coach. And I still, David Miller he's another old football player here. I see you a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
but
what it's all about.
That's, I think, makes you feel good about coaching. You feel like you've done something positive.
Absolutely. Positive impacts in those relationships. Coach, talk a little bit about, some of the challenges that you have experienced early in your career. to where things are at now, and maybe, you know, when we talk about where the challenges are at now, is it a multi-sport athlete? Is it personal trainers? Is it, you know, all the AAU teams, the travel teams? What do you think some of the challenges are?
I think the biggest challenge has become that high school sports has become 12 months a year. And it's tough for kids to be multi-sport athletes anymore.
Right.
When I was in high school, I played 3 sports for 4 years, and you could do it. Nowadays, for a kid to excel at his sport, it's hard.
Right.
You know, you might get, you know, 1 or 2 that are able to do that.
Right.
And I have arguments.
Up to sophomore year, maybe.
Yeah,
And
but I have
after that-
arguments, you know, with other coaches that still think, talked to a lot of wrestling coaches, they think kids could be multi-sport athletes.
Sure.
And it's difficult now with all the pressures put on kids from these outside, you know,
No
like you
question.
said, AAU and traveling and stuff. That's the biggest change I think I've seen over my career.
Right.
And our kids have become better at their sport, but I don't know if they become as well-rounded as they
Right.
could be in that.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Coach, talk a little bit about the transition into the golfing world, if you will.
Well, I always enjoyed golfing, Brendan. I've golfed with my son. My son John is outstanding golfer. Tommy's pretty good. And we always golfed every summer wherever, you know, we go on vacation and that. We always brought our clubs. I love to golf. And I had a good friend who was the golf coach over at Nazareth, Coach Danko.
Sure.
And the opportunity was open here, and I applied for the job, did a lot of talking to Coach Danko about it, and he got me ready for it. And, you know, I've really enjoyed it. We've had some good golfers. I think I've been maybe 8 or 9 years now with it, Brendan.
Well, I would think that, you know, being a golf coach plays into your strengths. Again, we touched on, you know, how you're able to connect with athletes, and I would imagine that it's you're playing a lot of psychologist, you know, if you will, and not so much swing coach. Mm. Can you talk a little bit about that and how? You know?
I think golf is probably 90% mental,
sure,
and 10% physical. To me, Brendan, I'm probably going to not pronounce this word correctly, but to me, golf is a kinesthetic sport. It's like throwing a football. That's something you can relate to. They can tell you 1,000 times what to do with your hand and how to release and everything, but you learn how to do it by throwing it. And I think golf is the same way. Golf, you learn by doing. I can watch my kids, and 90% of the time when they make a mistake, it's either that they haven't kept their head down, you know, and they're taking their eye off of the ball. And they'll laugh because I say it so often. But 90% of the time, our kids, their mistake comes by lack of concentration, and they're pulling their head too soon, and that will go into things where, like, they're pulling a hip out too soon and stuff like that.
No question.
I watch my kids swing so much that when they're doing something wrong, I can see something different in their swing, and I can help them that way. But that takes, for me, you know, constantly watching them, whether it be at the range or on the golf course.
No question. Well, it goes without saying, Coach, you know, RB's lucky to have you in whatever capacity it is, you know, that any given year or time, you know, RB's lucky to have you as a coach. Before we wrap things up, Coach, 2 or 3 female athletes that you think were just at the top of their field, whether it be in softball or girls basketball. Curious to know what you think.
Girls basketball, we probably had our 4 good ones. I mean, in my program. Maggie McCluskey went on to play at Loyola. Megan Hutchins went on to play at UIC. Aaron Pfeiffer went on to play at UW Parkside. And one that didn't go on to play in college was phenomenal player was Caitlin McCluskey for us.
Sure.
What was the
softball?
Softball, probably
some of the same girls.
Tina Petrone, Michelle Gordy back in the day, Deanne Coletta, the Juergens girls were phenomenal players.
There's a lot of them, a lot to go around. It's tough to narrow it down to 2 or 3, so I won't put you on the spot for football because I know we're still you're still talking with some of those guys, and I don't want to put you on the spot like that. But Coach, we do appreciate you coming out today, and we wish you and your program nothing but the best in the future. Thanks again, Coach.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to Curtin Call, and we'll be sure to catch up with you next week. Thank you.